You ever have one of those moments where the whole world around you is buzzing with noise, people laughing, music playing, glasses clinking, but you only hear one sentence, and it feels like someone just dropped a brick on your chest? That was me on a warm Saturday afternoon in Charlotte, North Carolina, last June. The smell of grilled burgers and hot dogs was in the air. Kids were running around the backyard with Nerf guns, and classic rock was playing low from a Bluetooth speaker near the patio. I was sitting at one of those fold-out tables, nursing a cold Bud Light, just enjoying the sun and the hum of conversation. It was our neighbor Todd's backyard barbecue, the kind of casual summer get-together we'd been to a dozen times before. My wife, Samantha, had been flitting around all afternoon in her sundress, talking with her little crew of friends. I wasn't paying them much attention. I figured they were talking about the usual stuff, someone's new car, kids' school drama, maybe a vacation one of them was planning. But then I heard her laugh. Not the laugh she gives me when I make a dumb joke at home. This one was louder, like she wanted people to hear it. And then, clear as day, I hear her say to her two friends, "Ethan's nice, but he's kind of beta. He never stands up for himself." They laughed. That quick, kind of laugh women give when they think they're in safe company. It was like my beer turned warm in my hand instantly. At first, I thought maybe I misheard. But then one of her friends, the real estate agent from down the street, Jenny, actually said, "Oh, girl, I know exactly what you mean." And the other one, a dental hygienist named Lauren, just smirked and sipped her White Claw. I didn't move, didn't make a scene, didn't storm over there demanding an explanation. Instead, I just sat there, letting the words sink in. I've had people insult me before. Life's full of that. But this was my wife. The woman I'd been with for nearly 8 years. The woman who sat across from me at the dinner table, who knew every scar on my body, who I thought respected me. And she was out here labeling me a beta, like I was some weak man she had to put up with. That's not just a little jab. In American culture, especially for men, that's a public hit to your identity. It says you're not a leader, not respected, not a man worth following. And she said it to her friends like it was a fact carved in stone. As I sat there, I started replaying other moments in my head, little things I'd brushed off at the time. Like last month when I suggested we skip her friend's Miami trip to save money for the kitchen remodel. She'd rolled her eyes and said, "You're no fun." Or the time at her parents' house when her dad asked me about a job promotion and she cut in with, "Oh, Ethan's too humble to go after something like that." Always with that light, dismissive tone. They were small cuts I'd ignored because I didn't want to pick fights over them. But now, sitting there with that cold can sweating in my hand, I realized they'd all been pointing to the same truth. She didn't see me as her equal. She saw me as safe, predictable, soft. And maybe she even thought she was too good for me. I looked over at her then. She was standing near the patio, holding a half-empty seltzer, smiling at Jenny like nothing had happened. Her sunglasses were pushed up on her head, and she was twirling a piece of her brown hair while she talked. She didn't even notice me watching. I've heard guys talk about the moment they snap. Mine wasn't loud or dramatic. It was quiet, like a switch being flipped in my head. I remember thinking, all right, Samantha, if I'm just a beta to you, then I'm not going to be your husband anymore. That's when the barbecue noise came back into focus. Todd calling out that the burgers were ready, kids screaming over a spilled soda, the music skipping a beat as someone bumped the speaker. I didn't say a word about what I'd overheard. Not that day. I ate my burger, thanked Todd and his wife for having us, and drove Samantha home in silence. She chatted about some boutique she wanted to visit next weekend, completely unaware that my mind had already left our marriage. In the United States, people love to talk about the big fights that end relationships, screaming matches, cheating scandals, someone storming out. But sometimes the end comes in a sentence. And for me, it was, "Ethan's nice, but he's kind of a beta." That was the day I stopped being her husband. She just didn't know it yet. I didn't blow up that night. I didn't tell her I'd overheard what she said. I didn't pack a bag and slam the door. That would have been too easy for her. She could have played the victim, told everyone I was overreacting. No, I wanted her to have no idea what was coming. The Monday after that barbecue, I stopped by a small law office in South Park on my lunch break. My attorney, a no-nonsense woman named Karen McAllister, looked me dead in the eye after I told her the basics, and said, North Carolina law requires you to be separated for a year before the divorce is final. If you're serious, you need a plan for the long game. That's exactly what I wanted. A year to rebuild myself from the ground up while she thought everything was fine enough. That night, over leftover spaghetti in our kitchen, I told Samantha I thought we could use some space. I suggested I get a small apartment closer to work just for a while. She didn't fight me, didn't even look upset. She just shrugged and said, if that's what you want. That told me everything. By Friday, I had signed a lease on a modest one-bedroom apartment above a hardware store in Pineville, 10 minutes from the Ford dealership where I worked. I didn't take much with me, just my clothes, tools, my old recliner, and a box of kitchen essentials. The first night there, I sat on the floor eating a takeout cheesesteak from Substation 2, watching a muted TV. It was quiet. Lonely, yeah, but there was also this sense of relief. No passive-aggressive comments. No walking on eggshells. No pretending to be the nice guy to avoid a fight. The next morning, my alarm went off at 4:45 a.m. I hadn't seen that hour in years. I got on my beat-up Toyota Camry, drove to a 24-hour gym, and started small, 30 minutes on the treadmill, light weights. I was embarrassingly out of shape, but nobody cared. Most of the guys there were blue-collar like me, warehouse workers, landscapers, cops, all sweating before sunrise. I started meal prepping on Sundays, grilled chicken, brown rice, steamed broccoli, sometimes salmon if it was on sale at Harris Teeter. No more frozen pizzas, no more eating whatever Samantha decided to order. Work became different, too. I wasn't dragging myself in half asleep anymore. I started showing up early, staying late, taking the tough repair jobs others avoided. My service manager noticed and started tossing more overtime my way. 2 months into living on my own, I cleaned out my closet. Anything baggy, worn, or safe went in a donation bag. I hit Belk during a clearance sale and picked up dark wash Levi's 511s, a few fitted Henleys, and a leather jacket I'd never have dared to wear before. Bought a used F-150 from a customer who was upgrading. Paid cash, kept it spotless. When you start looking different, people notice. My co-workers joked about me finally dressing like a man, but it wasn't just about the clothes. My posture changed. My voice got firmer. I didn't mumble through conversations anymore. By month 3, I was saying yes to things I used to avoid. The guys from the dealership invited me to watch a Panthers game at a sports bar in Uptown. I went, had a few beers, talked trash about the refs like I actually cared about football. A week later, I joined a boxing class at a small gym run by a retired Marine named Dale Whitaker. First session, I thought my lungs would explode. But Dale clapped me on the shoulder and said, "You'll get there. Just keep showing up." I did. 3 nights a week without fail. Samantha texted me occasionally. "Hope you're doing okay. I might stop by to drop off your mail." Once she asked if I wanted to grab dinner and catch up, I kept replies short, polite but distant. One night, around month 5, she sent, "I've been thinking a lot about us." I left it on read. That wasn't me being petty. That was me protecting my peace. You know what's funny? The further I got from her, the more I saw how much of myself I'd muted to keep her happy. I used to make decisions based on what she might think, what she might say to her friends, whether it would make me look cool enough in her eyes. Now, I was making choices based on what made me feel alive. Hiking at Crowder's Mountain on a Saturday morning, learning how to grill a perfect ribeye, listening to classic country while cleaning my truck. Around month 8, I ran into Samantha at Target. I was grabbing protein powder and paper towels. She was in workout gear with a cart full of home decor. She stopped me, gave me this half smile, and said, "You look different." I just said, "Yeah, I guess I do," and kept walking. That moment told me I was winning. Not in some rub-it-in-her-face way, but in the way where you know you've stepped into a version of yourself you should have been all along. By the time the 1-year separation deadline was close, I had my body back, my confidence back, my life back. I wasn't angry anymore. I was focused. And that's what made me dangerous to her comfortable little view of me. I wasn't the beta she'd casually labeled at that barbecue. I'd become the man she probably wished she'd met in the first place. The difference? This man had no interest in going back. It happened on a Saturday that started out like any other. Nothing special, nothing tense, Just a warm Carolina afternoon with a few clouds drifting overhead and the smell of grilled meat in the air. We were at Todd's place, a couple of blocks from our house in Charlotte. He'd invited half the neighborhood over for a backyard cookout. You know the type? Kids running wild with water guns, women gathered in little groups by the patio furniture, guys hanging near the grill with beers in hand, talking football even though preseason hadn't started yet. I was sitting off to the side at one of those plastic folding tables, sipping a Bud Light from the cooler and minding my own business. My wife, Samantha, was moving between conversations like she always did at these things, perfectly social, smiling at everyone, keeping her White Claw balanced in one hand while she gestured with the other. I'd gotten used to watching her work a crowd. She had a way of making people feel like they were the only one she wanted to talk to, even if she was already scanning for the next face. I didn't go looking for trouble that day, but trouble has a way of finding you when you least expect it. Todd was flipping burgers on the grill, grease hissing when it hit the hot coals, and the music from his Bluetooth speaker was just loud enough to cover most conversations. But not all of them. Samantha had her back to me, standing with two of her friends, Jenny, who sells real estate, and Lauren, who works as a dental hygienist. They were laughing about something, that kind of loud, forced laugh you hear when the joke isn't really funny, but everyone's playing along. Then I heard Samantha's voice clear as a bell, carrying right over the music and chatter. Ethan's nice, but he's kind of beta. He never stands up for himself. They laughed again, short, sharp, mean. Jenny leaned in, smirking. Oh, girl, I know exactly what you mean. Lauren didn't say anything, just sipped her drink and kept that little half smile on her face. I sat there frozen, my beer halfway to my mouth, like someone had just punched the air out of my lungs. I wasn't sure if I'd heard it right, so I replayed in my head, and every word landed like a hammer. Beta, that's not a random insult. It's the kind of label that sticks to you, one that tells people you're weak, soft, forgettable. And she didn't just say it in a moment of private anger. She said it in public, surrounded by people who'd nod along and add their own quiet judgment. In that moment, the noise of the party disappeared. I couldn't hear the grill popping or the kids shouting anymore. All I could hear was my pulse thudding in my ears and Samantha's words looping over and over. I started thinking back to all the little digs I'd brushed off over the years. The way she rolled her eyes when I said we should save for the kitchen remodel instead of going on another trip to Miami with her friends. How she interrupted me at her parents' house when her dad asked about a promotion, saying, "Oh, Ethan's too humble to chase things like that." Those weren't jokes. They were pieces of how she really saw me, dropped into conversations like breadcrumbs I was too blind or too trusting to follow. I looked over at her. She was still talking, still laughing, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear while Jenny nodded along. She didn't even glance my way. She had no idea I'd heard her, no idea that she'd just drawn a line in my head I wasn't going to cross back over. I didn't walk over and confront her. That's what she'd expect. A flash of temper she could twist into me, overreacting, or taking things the wrong way. Instead, I just sat back, took a slow drink, and let the decision settle in my chest like a stone. If she thought I was a beta, then she didn't need to be married to me. Simple as that. I kept my face neutral for the rest of the afternoon. When Todd called out that the burgers were ready, I grabbed one, added mustard and a pickle, and ate it while making small talk with one of the guys from down the street about the Panthers' upcoming season. Every so often I'd hear her laugh float over from the patio, and it would hit me again. This woman, my wife, the person I'd built a life with, had just cut me down in front of her friends without a second thought. When the sun started dropping and people began packing up, I thanked Todd and his wife for having us, tossed my empty can in the recycling bin, and walked to the truck. Samantha slid into the passenger seat without missing a beat in whatever story she'd been telling me about some boutique she wanted to check out next weekend. I drove us home in silence, letting her fill the air with her plans, not giving her even a hint of what I'd heard. Because I wasn't going to tell her. Not yet. The power in moments like this isn't in the explosion, it's in the quiet. The kind of quiet where you start making moves in your head that the other person won't see coming until it's too late. That ride home was the last time I let her speak to me like my value was something she could measure and mock. She just didn't know it yet, and that was fine by me. Sometimes, The end of a marriage doesn't come in a fight or a betrayal you can prove in court. Sometimes it comes in a single sentence, said over a drink, under the sound of music, with the kind of laugh that lets you know they meant every word. And once you hear it, you can't unhear it. That was the moment my marriage ended. It just took a while for the paperwork to catch up.